Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and I'm also a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I wanted to go over a topic about an avoidant going silent. Basically, when they are taking time for themselves and there is no communication pretty much at all for maybe a couple hours to a couple days. Now, some of y'all have even experienced this for a couple weeks. I've seen it as well. Now, the amount of how long an avoidant goes silent is not completely comparison to their stress level, even though that's part of it, and we'll get into it. But it's more common with those who are either younger or less aware of their emotional dysfunctions regarding attachment issues, right? Some avoidants have some awareness, and so they're less likely to do this. Now, one of the main triggers for silence with an avoidant, so it's not ghosting, it's just they need some space and they're going to return, is external stress, actually, not internal stress in the relationship, external stress. And so what is external stress? This could be a job situation, something's going on at work. It could be maybe a loss of a family member, unfortunately. It could be something that they're ashamed to admit is happening in their life and they don't want to say it to you. So a very common example, especially for male avoidance, but in general, could be financial issues, honestly, where they might be struggling and they don't want to show that in front of you. It might make them feel a certain way. Even if you very well could be respectful, you could even help them out. But they don't want that. They're very uncomfortable with feeling very weak. And so typically one of the main reasons an avoidant is going silent is because they're either feeling vulnerable and they're not sure how you will react, or they're stressed and they genuinely need some time for themselves. And so how do you know it's silent versus ghosting? Well, they come back, right? And silence is common in relationships. It just in avoidant relationships, but some avoidants do not do that. And so this is what some avoidants who don't go silent, how they behave, so that you can kind of know the difference to kind of categorize your partner. There are also a type of an avoidant where they don't go silent necessarily, but they just are less engaged in texting or communication. So they're much more detached. Most avoidants do one or the other or both, but I typically see it's more one or the other, where the person who goes silent, they're silent for a couple days or whatever they need, and they come back and they're very emotionally engaged and very more of commitment forward than before. Whereas the one who's a little bit more disengaged, they actually tend to be quite slower with committing, actually, believe it or not. They don't have those silent moments, but they're a little bit less engaged and emotional and romantically charged in general, but that one's more of like a slow burn relationship. So sometimes those avoidants might be actually more stable partners for you. Honestly, I've noticed they tend to actually have more stable relationships. One or the other is fine, it's possible, but it's something to remember. So we're talking about now the difference of avoidance, but the common triggers for both silence versus kind of detaching is going to be some external stress. It may be something internal, but most of the time it's external. It could be vulnerability, it could be work, anything. And so how do you understand the differences between how do you communicate in these situations, whether if your partner is going silent or if they're disengaged? Actually, for you, the responses might be pretty much the same. You let them know that you're here for them. You let them know that you appreciate what's going on with them. And if they need to talk, you can. But you can also mention, I do know sometimes you do this and I can respect that. I'm not sure if that's what's happening now, but I am totally fine with giving you some space, whatever you need, and I'll reach out in a couple days. And the ones who are typically more disengaged, so they're not silent, what they tend to do is they actually might sometimes reintroduce a new idea or help you or reframe your own thought by saying, you don't need to not text me. I'm just busy, or just expect that my responses might be a little late. They might correct you, and that might give you some reassurance. However, sometimes what I see with the avoidant that's silent, they don't respond if you say that. But even if they don't respond, don't let it trigger you. Let them have that time, and then you hold to your word. You said you're going to check them in a couple days. Go ahead and check on them. And then you can at least gauge, is there true hope for this connection, or is this some silence that you won't be able to handle? Because most people cannot handle a relationship where there's silence, and I don't blame you. It's not a very healthy situation for you to be in. It's hard to have a relationship when somebody goes completely silent, right? And so to be completely honest, for most of you guys, I would hope that you're in, or I would want you to be in relationships where instead of them going silent, they're a little bit more disengaged. That might be a little bit better. Like I said, I see that with more stable relationships. The next one is just in general, I want, when you're navigating the silence, I want you to really think about how you can take care of yourself. A lot of times what I see happens with couples is while the individual is sitting in silence, like you, the anxious or fearful leaning anxious, what you tend to do is you get the negative thoughts in your head, and sometimes what ends up happening is you crash out because of that, right? So you end up, maybe you start pressuring them, or you get really upset, or if there's other things going on, you might vent with your friends and then they tell you to do X, Y, and Z, and then the whole thing becomes more of a mess or more complicated than it should be. And it ends up being that it may turn into ghosting. Sometimes that happens. I'm not saying this is wrong or right. This video is, I'm just trying to give you information. I'm actually literally in between sessions, so I know this is not going to be a very clear video, but I really felt like this was important because a lot of you guys have been asking, and I didn't want to forget. What ends up happening is it may have started out as silence, but then you may have reacted in a way that made them feel like, oh, wow, you can't handle me when I'm relaxed or just needing space for myself. You're angry, you're blowing up my phone, whatever it is. Maybe we shouldn't be together. Or they take even longer of a silence. And so the most important thing is when this is happening that you avoid the negative thoughts. You can still reach out, but it's how you reach out that makes a difference. If you're saying, I'm just checking on you, are you okay? Or let me know what's going on, whatever it may be, and it's been a couple days, if that's how long their silence is, that probably will not be as pressuring as you saying, like, I can't do this anymore, you're so difficult, why do you do this to me, I feel so alone, right? That might be a little bit less willing for the avoidant to engage. Now, let's talk about the impact of the relationship by doing this. So I had mentioned that I see that there are two types of avoidance typically with this type of communication style. It's either that they're silent or they're just less engaged when they're stressed. Personally, from what I've seen in practicing, the individual who is just more drier texting or disengaged tends to have more stable relationships. And so that actually helps the other person to feel more safe in the relationship. So when it comes to silence, what is the impact it has on the relationship? Well, both good and bad. It helps you to trust them when they return, that they're not going to ghost you. And so you start learning their patterns a little bit more. So there's a positive impact there. But the other impact is that you start expecting that the relationship will be a little bit more detached than perhaps you originally wanted. And that can be good or bad, but sometimes what happens is you're not getting pretty basic needs met, and you might actually feel quite lonely in the relationship, to which when the avoidant individual is ready to not be silent any longer, let's say you guys have been doing this cycle for a couple of years, and they kind of decided, I don't need to pull back anymore, you might be kind of exhausted at that point where you're like, I don't even know if I want to stay. So you have one foot out the door and they have both feet finally in. And I see that sometimes. So it's very important to recognize if your partner is silent, how much longer of this silence can you take? Can you be there for all the years that, until they change? Can you? Because if you can, that's great. But if you can't, maybe at one point when you guys are more calm or have more rapport built, have a conversation about the fact that maybe you could have some communication in between the silence, okay? And the very last point that I wanted to get into is just moving forward in this space where an avoidant is being silent. The most important thing I think for you guys is to recognize that it's not personal. Most of the time, like almost every time that I see a patient does this or they report that they're doing this, it has almost literally nothing to do with their partner. Now, if they extend their silence, maybe it has to do with your reaction, but most of the time it's something very external. Do not take it upon yourself. There are some of you in my comment section, I was thinking about y'all, where you are thinking you did something wrong to your ex and you're blaming yourself. You're a good person. A lot of you guys are great people. and your ex was probably dealing with something and they didn't deal with it the right way, and they probably will return. If you want to take them back, you go for it. Otherwise, whatever, do whatever you like. It's deserving of you, but it's not about you. You could have been the best partner, and maybe they weren't ready for what you had to offer. And I just want you guys to not take it personally, whatever's going on, silent, ghosting, ex. Relationships are complicated, but I just want you guys to understand that. Now, I do want to apologize one more time. I know in general my videos are all over the place, but this one in particular, I know that. But I would appreciate if you guys could just keep those comments to yourself, because sometimes I just cannot control my schedule. And if I don't bring these videos, I will forget. And I know you guys want this, and I'm doing this to help people. So I hope that you accept and enjoy this video. Please like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.